Welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hi, I'm James Thompson, one of the hosts of the BuyBox Experts podcast. I'm a partner with BuyBox Experts and the former business head for the Selling on Amazon team at Amazon, as well as the first account manager of the Fulfillment by Amazon program. I'm the co-author of a couple of books on Amazon, including the recent book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Today's episode is brought to you by BuyBox Experts. BuyBox Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. When you hire BuyBox Experts, you receive the strategy optimization and marketing performance to succeed on Amazon. We also support investors with due diligence services. Go to buyboxexperts.com to learn more. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to send a big shout out to the team at Getida, a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. Getida analyzes your Amazon data, reconciles your FBA inventory, and files claims for reimbursements on your behalf. To learn more, check out getida.com. Our guest today is Sebastian Funke, co-founder and CEO of the Stryze Group, a Berlin-based firm that builds its own brands and acquires promising brands from outside entrepreneurs in order to take them to the next level, applying Stryze's deep domain expertise, manpower, and capital. Prior to Stryze, Sebastian founded and headed up several firms, including 5 companies in the e-commerce space. Sebastian, welcome, and thank you for joining us today on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
James, thanks so much for hosting me today. I'm very happy to be here.
Let me start by asking you, Sebastian, these FBA private label businesses are very much a hot commodity today. What do you think has generated this recent interest in these businesses when these companies have been around since the beginning of the Amazon marketplace nearly 2 decades ago?
I think there's several factors. First of all, I mean, one of the big reasons why investors jumped on that topic clearly was the role model by Stryze, the first FBA roll-up business. And due to the tremendous success of this company, I think investors looked more and more into this space. In the past, and I also had this experience because in 2018, 2019, I already here in Germany tried to acquire companies. I went to investors, equity as well as debt investors, and basically they told me, we're not interested. Why? E-commerce investments were so 2010, and also they didn't understand the business at all. But in general, the underlying assets, the FBA brands, the FBA businesses, they have been always interesting because they have a steady cash flow. In most cases, they are profitable, growing fast. The business can be basically done from everywhere. And therefore, it was always an interesting target for capital. Another point is, I think in general, there's a lot of capital in the market right now, looking for interesting cash generating, yield generating assets. And therefore, I think investors saw the blueprint that there is a potential to invest money and get a return. And then there is enough money to do that. So now a lot of money is pouring in there, and not just in the US, but also globally.
So what do you think is going to happen over the next couple of years as more aggregators continue to flow into the space? Potentially more of the traditional private equity companies will get interested. How does that change the way you think about your own business?
I guess it will be similar to a general, like in a normal PE market. Yeah. So there will be more specialization. Yeah. You might have people just in specific niches trying to aggregate businesses. There will be different kind of classes, basically ones which try to aggregate smaller businesses, maybe 500,000, a million, and try to aggregate that to 20, 30 million and selling it to the next level. Yeah, so there might be then medium-sized players trying to aggregate players between 5 and 15 million, and there's very large players. So I think that's one trend which is going to happen in the future. Yeah. I mean, in the US, you already have a pretty well-developed industry. I think this will also happen in Europe, in Japan, South America. There will be more and more brokers coming to the market, not necessarily platforms, but also individual brokers helping FBA players to sell their business as good as possible. So I think, like in every market, the market will be mature. Unfortunately, the yields will go down, over time.
Yes.
But also the entire market will be more professional. But I also think that the sellers will get much better, because actually the entire FBA aggregator model enables now FBA sellers to have an exit. If you go 3 years back, there wasn't this industry.
Yeah.
You created an Amazon business in most cases to have a side hustle, to earn some cash. But in most cases, you didn't sell it. And now that's what I'm telling everyone. FBA now is not just a possibility to make some money on the side or to be an entrepreneur. It's actually a way to make a 7-digit number through an exit.
Yes.
In a 12, 18, 24 months time frame, which I think it's pretty amazing, because you also have an industry like you guys. You have an industry around that, helping FBA sellers, people who join the market, to be successful. There are people who try to help you to find the right product. People tell you, can help you to do advertising. How do you do the right Amazon SEA, the SEO, all of that. You have warehousing, storage. You have such a great industry around that. You just have to start, execute well, and build something up. And in the course of 1, 2, even 3 years, you can have an exit of 2, 3, 5, or 10 million.
Yeah, it's a very unusual situation for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur. Let me ask you this: you've been involved in a lot of e-commerce businesses before coming to Stryze. What has drawn you specifically to the Amazon-centric private label brand? And what are some of the kinds of issues that have surprised you the most working with these types of entrepreneurs?
I mean, the thing is, we didn't build the company the Stryze Group itself is the follow-on company of a company which I had before. I was myself an entrepreneur in the FBA space.
Okay.
I had an FBA business, which is called Manuko Group. The Manuko Group was an 8-digit in the end. After 4 years, it was an 8-digit revenue-based company. And I was in that space anyways. I have been in VC before, had other companies where I had VC investors. And then people in 2020, seeing the Thrasio model, came up to me and said, hey, you know what? Why don't you do that? Why don't you take some money and then grow your business through acquisitions? And I said, great idea. I tried to do that in the past. Nobody wanted to give me the money. Now let's do that. And actually in the end of 2020, we created the Stryze Group, took all my experience. I took my team from the Manuko. I took a very good friend of mine who is from the VC space. I worked with him several times on other businesses. I took another friend who worked for Goldman Sachs, 14 years in M&A, and my co-founder of the Manuko, and we four then created the Stryze Group. Had some great investors. You can check them out. It's one of them is Upper 90 as an investor, and then we also have German investors. And now we're trying to acquire good brands, not just in Europe. We're also now starting in the US. And what I think is very interesting about this market is the people who work in this market. In the last 4 months, I personally have talked to around 400 entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I do the first calls myself.
Okay.
And I met people between the age of 17 to 70. People doing this on a part-time job, doing this on a full-time job, doing it alone, doing it with 20 people, doing it from South Africa, doing it from Thailand, doing it from the US, and operating in Germany or Europe. So it's very interesting. I met a janitor. I met someone who is a professor who does it on the side, making 3 million in revenues with one product and over half a million profits just on the side.
Wow.
And this is, I'm really impressed by the people, very entrepreneurial people, very nice people, very open-minded people. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's what I really like about this industry.
You also build brands of your own. You're not just acquiring. And that's a little bit unusual compared to many of the aggregators right now. How do you think about the role of building brands versus just getting big by buying companies?
If you think in this industry that you can have a long-term success by just buying them, I think you will struggle to be successful. Why? Because you have to have the DNA understanding how the brand works, how you add new products to that. Mm-hmm. I always compare it to real estate. Building a listing on Amazon is like building a house. Yeah, at least in Germany. I know in the US it takes longer, but in Germany you need 12 to 18 months to build a house. Very similar to a listing. Until you take the full revenues, it's probably like 12, 18 months. And by acquiring them, you're saving that time and you're reducing your risk. But since we have the experience of building those listings, those products, we are going to continue that. Not just for our brands we have, but also the brands we're acquiring, because that's the organic growth you need in order to be really successful.
As you think about Amazon as a marketplace, they encourage as much competition as possible. You could have 500 people selling basically the same type of product. Along comes the 501st, who's willing to give up a little bit on margin, spend a little bit more on advertising, knows how to play the Amazon game well. That 501st company could beat the other 500. As you think about those type of dynamics, as well as a world where today anybody can go to China and get a manufacturer to build something, how do you embrace that enthusiasm to create a situation where, recognizing there's often not a lot of moats around some of these businesses, how do you create a stronger business yourself, recognizing that you have every other seller out there that could potentially be a competitor to what you as a company do today?
I think, first of all, you have to like products. I think it's important. If you're on Amazon, you have to like products.
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean with that, it's like I enjoy looking at my products and trying to develop them further. I did that in the past. I'm still doing this. I cannot do it for all the products, you understand. But if this is the DNA of the company, we are a marketing and product company. We're using FBA acquiring just to grow faster.
Okay.
So we are a product and marketing company, as I said, and therefore I think to be successful, you have to develop your products. What I mean with that is if you're entering a market with exactly the same product, yes, you can go down with the price, you can go down with where you have to invest more marketing, but ideally you have something which is a little bit different. It doesn't have to be hugely different, but for example, the easiest thing is another color. Sometimes it's worth to really look at the colors which are offered. And sometimes there are certain colors not offered or not for whatever reason, not put to the marketplace. Then eventually people sell 2 pieces in one pack. You sell 3 pieces. In a way, it reduces your margin, but it also gives you competitive advantage. These are just a few examples what we are doing. I think that's what you have to, just adding another product, it's difficult to succeed. And I always like to give one example. We started with one product in the past in 2016, which was a baking mat. I always tell everyone this story. There was one baking mat which we sold for $8.99.
Okay.
Now, 5 years later, we're selling 10 pieces for $9.99 and still making an almost the same margin. Why? Because we're buying so many, because we're dominating the market so much that we still can get the margin as in the first place.
Wow.
So, but it was an iterative process. Then it was 2, then it was 3, then it was 4. You have to continuously work on your product. If you don't, your product will go down in ranking. That's what everyone forgets about this business.
Let's shift gears. I want to talk with you about where investors are finding these brands. at least here in the United States, it's still common for many of these companies to go and look at brokers and see what brokers have available for sale. I've heard some pretty crazy stories of a broker putting a company out for bid, and 10, 12 companies will all show up with cash offers. And it's a feeding frenzy, quite frankly. How does your company think about using brokers, using connections, doing outbound to brands to find them and tell them that you're interested? How do you think about all of those different ways of eventually finding the needles in the haystack that look good for your business?
First of all, it may be interesting for you to know, in Europe, we don't have those platforms. We don't have empire flippers. We have one or two very small platforms. So basically, the entire deal flow we are selling or trying to buy is originated by ourselves.
Okay.
So we just do outbound all the time.
Okay.
And that works through basically very similar to what we did in the past by identifying new products for the portfolio. We're identifying products, and through the products, we're identifying sellers. And at least here in Europe, I think it's different in the US a little bit, but at least in Europe, you find the entire address, the telephone number, and email address through the imprint, which is mandatory in order to operate on Amazon.
Yep.
So through the understanding what products work, you identify the seller, and then you contact them. But of course, now when we go to the US, we're also going through those platforms, checking out what kind of offers there are. But we also will have creating our own deal flow. But I'm pretty confident that's possible if you approach people in the right way, if you're friendly. That's why I do it myself. I'm as a CEO of a company nowadays I would what is 70 currently people, growing quite fast. Probably at the end of the year, probably at 150 or so. But I still do. I like to do. Not all of them, but some of those calls, because it's very important to approach the entrepreneurs at the same level. It's not possible that an intern calls there. It has to be another entrepreneur, because I think that's important, that the seller feels also take it serious.
Let me ask you, because you're doing outbound to brands, some of these brands may not necessarily have top of mind, I'm preparing my business for sale. Some of them may be thinking at some point there is an opportunity to exit. As you go back and think about these conversations you've had with these entrepreneurs, what are some of the steps that you wish more of these companies were doing to get their business in a position that exiting at some point might actually be feasible?
In the end, it comes down to the product portfolio, I would say. Yeah. If you have it can be also more than one brand, but a brand has to be kind of consistent. A brand is not just one product. You should have 5 or 10 products which fit into this category, which have the same design. Yeah. Sometimes you have sellers who have a little bit of here, a little bit of there. You see that they were looking for opportunities.
Yes.
Which for the cash generating business, like the side hustle, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to have the highest sales price possible, you develop a product portfolio which is consistent. You can also have 2 brands or 3 brands, but that also means sometimes taking in products which eventually are not the top sellers, but they belong into the product portfolio in order to be a consistent product offering. So what I'm saying is and also invest some time into the brand, into the design of the packaging. Yeah, so it should look nice. In the end, the acquirer is also just a human being, and is also looking at it and feels like, hey, this looks good, because customer will also think that looks good.
So let me ask you, Sebastian, on Amazon, what is a successful brand? What does it mean to be a successful brand versus being a collection of products that you can sell to make money?
I mean, in the end, it's design. Yeah, of course, a brand, everyone has the same brand name, then a consistent design, and let's say a product portfolio in a niche, let's say. Yeah, I mean, for example, home and kitchen. You could say, I'm in this category, home and kitchen, so I have a brand. But it's probably like a better brand would be, I have a brand for barbecuing, which is still home and kitchen, but it's a niche brand. I just have products, one brand with just products on barbecuing. Yeah. Do I explain myself?
Yeah, that makes sense. But tell me more about, okay, so I have 5 products that are barbecue products. How does that make a brand on Amazon? What does it mean to be consistent on Amazon? What does it mean to have a brand that's extendable into other products or other product lines?
In the end, you should have a brand store, yeah, which basically unites everything. The value in the end comes through reviews. Yeah, reviews is what the FBA buyers are basically paying for. So try to have good ranked. It doesn't have to be always top sellers, because if you have just top sellers, there is less potential for a buyer to improve it going forward.
True.
Yeah?
True.
And therefore, somewhere in the middle or high middle, it's also good. Yeah. And then if you have a consistent brand, as I said, the design, but also the entire content on Amazon on all the listings is the same. Sometimes you do some cross-selling. That's in the end a brand on Amazon, a consistent brand.
So let me ask you this. You've talked at length about your philosophy of how you run your business. For our audience of brand owners, what makes the Stryze Group different from other firms that are also buying FBA businesses?
I think we have 2 main differentiators. One is, maybe 3. One is that we are, since many years, an FBA seller ourselves. So we are from the space. We're not just some finance guys just buying businesses. We know what we're talking. And also from all the talks we have with sellers, we always get the feedback, hey, you really understand what we're doing, especially in those cases which are not so easy sometimes to understand because they're a little bit more tricky here and there.
Yep.
That's the one thing. Second thing is, for all American sellers, I think we're interesting. Why? Because we can take your brand to Europe and leverage on the reviews you have built up in the US. Why is that interesting? Because the number of reviews in the US is normally by a factor of 1, 2, 3x higher than in Europe, because the market is bigger. And with the products, you can take them nowadays, you can take the reviews also to the other platforms. And we have the in-house team to basically do the translations. We have all the text topics. So we are ready to take the products to Europe, if I compare us to US players. And then there's the third thing is, which is, we believe not only in Amazon, we believe in direct to consumer. And direct to consumer happens on the one hand on Amazon, but on the other hand also on social commerce.
Okay.
We are also building social commerce brands with a big difference, that this is another belief we have, is that a brand which is on Amazon, you cannot take to social commerce, but you can take the product with a new brand to social commerce. Okay. And that's interesting because you already have the production facilities, you have the entire manufacturers, which is very helpful. And you already have a certain scale. And taking then the product, rebranding it, repricing it, and putting it into social commerce.
Yes.
Why do I say that? And why do I believe it's not possible to use both channels for the same brand? Because it's 2 different channels. Amazon, it's a pull marketing channel. There is a demand already existing.
Okay.
Whereas in social commerce, it's a push marketing channel. You have to create the demand. And I can tell you, I can show you several examples where you have a product, a product on Amazon selling, for example, a massage gun. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
It's sold on Amazon for $80, roughly in Germany, starting at $80. In social commerce, it's sold for $400. Why? Because the marketing spend is so high in order to bring it there. Because you have conversion rate in social commerce, which is somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5%. In Amazon, you have 15 to 25%. It doesn't work. And I saw so many people trying it. It never worked. If you separate it, it works.
So let me ask you this. What do you see brands needing to think through to determine, is now the right time to exit to one of these investors? Or should they continue to build their business and wait 6 months, wait 12 months, wait 2 years? How do you help companies think through that issue when obviously you have a vested interest in being able to build your business yourself?
Thanks for the question, because I think it's a very valid question, and I would not answer it with time. I would answer it in a different way. The company is growing like that. It's not growing linear.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean with that is the following. There are two different steps where you as an entrepreneur have to make certain decisions. The first step is you do Amazon on a side hustle and it grows.
Yep.
And suddenly you have the question of, should I do it full time? It's the first very difficult question. Yeah. So people then do it or not do it. If you don't want to do it, good time to sell, make some money and start a new one. Then you come into the next step where you as entrepreneur do it full time, maybe with your wife or family and friends. You don't have any employees. You grow it, and suddenly you need employees. They're like, I don't know. Should I employ someone?
Yeah.
You have seen that probably. And next good time to sell. Because of your limited resources, you're not going to grow further and you don't want to take the risk. Good time to sell. Start a new one, sell it again. Then you have a couple of employees, and guess what? Employees cost money, business is growing, responsibility, working capital is missing. You don't have enough money to further grow. You have to go to a bank. You have to put your house, everything at risk.
Yep.
Good time to sell. So that's, I would say, the answer. If you have the feeling you're reaching a certain limit with the resources you have, I think it's a good time to approach someone and try to sell it.
This is a fantastic answer. I've never heard anybody describe it this way, but you're absolutely right. There are step function decisions where you have to decide, am I all in or do I want to take a break? Am I all in or I want to take a break? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Sebastian. That was really good. Let's talk a little bit about, what do you think is going to make your business successful long-term when there are so many other people trying to do similar types of things, buying companies, expanding them into new channels, finding efficiencies and so on? What's going to differentiate you and your ability to keep growing?
In the end, I think what is very, very important in this business is BI, business intelligence, and tech. Why do I say that? Each product is competing in its own market.
Mm-hmm.
It's different than if you have one web shop. Yeah, if you have one web shop, you're competing against other web shops. But on Amazon, each product has its own market, competing, as you said earlier, 500 competitors.
Yep.
If you have 3 products, it's easily to monitor the market. You know exactly your competitors, what they're doing. You're looking every day at them. If you have 30, it's more difficult. If you have 300, it's more difficult. If you have 3,000, it's more difficult. So you have to monitor each product very well. You have to have a system telling you if something is happening with the product or the environment around that product. Prices go down, reviews go down, new entrants, whatever. This is what I believe makes us in the end different. A heavy investment into technology and business intelligence, which helps you to identify the right products and sellers to approach them, monitor your product in the right way, that you're told when something happens instead of, so basically you just have to react and you don't have to monitor like by yourself, by hand. And the third one is through technology analyzing all the data you get from Amazon, conversion rates, click rates, yada, 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 improve your product. And this has to be done through technology, and I think that's important. Lots of people think they're just buying assets like real estate and just have to do a little bit of maintenance here and there. No, it's a hard work.
Yeah.
And if you scale them, you have to monitor them. And I also know from our investors, which are very deeply involved in the entire market, that there are businesses with 30% of outperformers and 70% of the portfolios going down, because it's very difficult to monitor everything. And I think that's a big difference, and it's an investment which is worth to do. But this is just my belief. Other people will say, hey, if you have enough money. Yeah, money is out there. There's not a question. Currently, there's enough money out there. You have to show that you can develop your portfolio further. That's why we're also investing into organic growth. We're adding more products also to the existing and brands we are buying. So it has to be an e-commerce company. It's not just an acquisition company.
I want to wrap up our conversation today, Sebastian, by asking you, when you look at what's happened in the last year and a half, 2 years of you buying companies, but also what you've done in the past, building brands yourself, what are the things that have surprised you the most about this whole process of being an investor, buying other companies?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's finding the right, what's very difficult to find the right price in the way that the other side is also happy with it. Yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges, because now everyone thinks they can ask all kinds of skyrocket prices, but in the end, it also must make sense for the buyer. Yeah, to financially, and we basically have to refinance ourselves with investors, and therefore there's a natural cap at what we can offer. Yeah, and I think that was a little bit which surprised me sometimes, that people, although they have been educated in Amazon and also know that there is a certain market price. Yeah, I mean, in the US, you can go.
Yes.
They're sometimes asking for those abnormal prices, which don't make sense at all, and feel kind of, I don't know, upset when you don't follow those price ranges. Yeah. But, you know, in the end, it's a negotiation, and if they don't want to sell, that's fine with me. There are other buyers, and in general, I always like the ones which we're buying. We also try to learn from them, not just on the specific product level, but also in general about how they see Amazon and how do they do Amazon. And there's always small nitty gritty tactics they're using,
yes,
which are not just applicable to their own brand, but also to the entire portfolio, because they're general tactics which you can use on Amazon. Amazon is an experience game. You have to have experience. Yeah, there's not a playbook and everything, which nothing against YouTube. I think there's a lot of great videos on YouTube where you can learn from. But the latest news, you have to experience yourself.
Running an agency, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Sebastian, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Buybox Experts podcast. For those of you interested in learning more about the Stryze Group, please visit stryze.com. That's STRYZE.com. Join us again next time on the Buybox Experts podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Getida. Getida is a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. Getida analyzes your Amazon data, reconciles your FBA inventory, and files claims for reimbursements on your behalf. No obligations, no hidden fees, just Getida recovering your money. Getida helps you get your money back into your pockets so you can focus on investing in more inventory and growing your business. To learn more, check out Getida.com. That's GETIDA.com.
Thanks for listening to the Buybox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.